Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Sincere apologies as we got delayed again today, but we had some technical issues. We're still trying to figure out some technical issues with our um, another co-host, Kali, and we're gonna keep a tab on that. But before that, welcome to Philosapiens, where religion meets reason and where we critically analyze arguments from various religious apologists, but chiefly from the Islamic side, basically. And with me, as always, is Mahatin. Mahatin, how's everything?
It's all good. It's all good. I'm just having
How's
my
your dinner going, by the way?
dinner, everybody. So my mouth is a
Yeah,
little bit, busy and full.
yeah. All right, you go ahead
That's all
and
good.
finish your meal, and
All
you
good. I
can
can.
jump in whenever you feel
Oh,
like, basically.
I can multitask. I've been eating food and debating people for a very long time. You know,
All
so
right, right.
it's all very good. You know.
All right. Okay. What I'm gonna do is, since it's a convince us episode, basically, so anybody who wants to join, I'm gonna make the link public. They can join in, and they can join in, and they can. I removed what shouldn't have been there on the screen in the very first place. What I was doing was going through a few shots and thinking of picking up a few which should have been reviewed, basically. So apologies that that screen was on the screen, basically. That page was rather on the screen. But in any case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite anybody who wants to join and present their best case, their best arguments, and uh, try to convince us with whatever their worldview is, and basically give us the best of the arguments, and let's see where it goes with us and a very cordial discussion, pretty much. And so I think we last time what who we had, Martin. I think Anthony we had, and we had a few other guys. I think Wakas was also there, right?
Yep.
All right. So guys, I've made the link public, and I'm gonna show it on the screen. Anybody who wants to join is welcome to join. Otangelo has been here before. Freddie has been here before. What was the other guy's name who had Harold, or what was his name? Martin, probably you remember the other guy from Florida, right? I think
I
he was
don't,
also here, right?
I don't remember.
Not Florida, not Florida. Maybe some other place, probably somewhere in the Midwest, probably. What else am I gonna do? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have it pinned on YouTube, basically, so that it stays on the top, basically. Uh, if you can see it pinned, just give us a thumbs up.
Hmm.
I'm asking the audience, Madin. So
Yes, I know.
yeah,
I'm just reaffirming what you said. Yes,
right.
reaffirming. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So Madin, what we have is I have a few shots, and let's see if we want to review any of those, basically, and go through the logic,
Right.
basically, right?
Go for it.
And let's see if Kali can join us. What I'm gonna do is let's see. Let's hear this one and see if this one is worth having a review, right?
Okay.
You mentioned that consciousness is a metaphysical and doesn't belong to this world. That's completely wrong.
No, it
because-
does belong to this world. Who said it doesn't belong to this world?
Yeah, you said it's out of this world.
No,
It's
From
like
the metaphysical doesn't mean it's outside the universe. It's still within the
Intangible.
universe.
It is tangible, but the
Not
brain or
tangible.
body.
Not tangible,
Consciousness
dude.
doesn't exist.
Anyway, listen, I think you're just repeating yourself. All I'm saying is do not use double standards.
You
The
guys
gap
think
of
that science
science.
is like your enemy. You guys are anti-scientific.
We
No,
embrace
some of the
science. We
earliest
love
scientists were
science.
Muslims.
The
What are you
Quran
on about?
encourages us for
Yeah,
knowledge.
like
Some of
Western
the
Union
earliest
Times.
scientists were
Yes,
Muslims.
please
What are you on
don't.
about?
The phone that you are
Bye bye.
using, if it
He
wasn't
left.
for
He left.
Khawarizmi, you would not be using it.
He realized his double standards and he had no answer, so it was ad hominem at the end.
You mentioned that consciousness is a metaphysical and doesn't belong to this world. That's completely wrong.
No, it
because-
does belong to this world. Who said it doesn't belong to this world?
Yeah, you said it's out of this world.
No,
It's
from
like
the metaphysical doesn't mean
Do you think it's worth reviewing? Just
Yes.
talking about it? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So I don't know what. Do you want to go first?
No, I see. I think there are missing links over here. I'm not quite sure what the conversation before this was, basically, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know what this atheist argument was. Basically, I think he's accusing them of saying that consciousness is not consciousness is metaphysical but not physical. Probably that's what he thought these guys are saying, right? But I'm not quite sure if that's apparent. I think Hashim seems to have corrected them that he doesn't think that consciousness is only metaphysical, basically. So, in a sense, that seems right to me. I don't know what your take is on that.
Sure. Let's just watch it again because he says not in this world, not that it's not physical. Yeah, or
Yeah.
physical. We're not talking about physical.
Let's listen.
Consciousness is a metaphysical and doesn't belong to this world. That's completely wrong.
it
because-
does belong to this world. Who said it doesn't belong to this world?
Yeah, you said it's out of this world.
No,
It's
from
like
the metaphysical doesn't mean it's outside the universe. It's still within the
Intangible,
universe.
It is tangible, but the is
Not
the brain or
tangible.
body.
Not tangible,
Consciousness
dude.
doesn't exist.
Anyway, listen, I think you're just repeating.
I think so. So probably I'm assuming this guy misunderstood the word that they used. Probably they said. Now I understand it. Probably they said the word tangible versus intangible. So they used word intangible for consciousness, right? And they are probably right in that sense. Basically, I mean, you can't really pinpoint what consciousness is and where it resides in a human brain, pretty much, right? It could be an emerging property of the brain, as you, that you can probably just cannot exactly pinpoint where it resides, probably, and that's why you could probably ascertain brain states to the consciousness states, pretty much, right? Or the mental states in that sense, not mental states but conscious states, pretty much. So I think probably this video may not be worth reviewing, but one point I'm gonna add to it, what they said towards the end, is that they think that the Quran says that you should, I think so, or something of that sort. There, let's listen to it exactly.
All I'm saying is do not use double standards.
You
The
guys
gap
think
of
that science
science.
is like your enemy. You guys are anti-scientific.
We
No,
embrace
some of the
science. We
earliest
love
scientists were
science. The
Muslims. What are you
Quran
on about?
encourages us for knowledge.
like
Some of
Western
the
Union Times.
earliest scientists were
Yes,
Muslims.
please
What are you on
don't.
about?
Yeah, so the point I wanted to make was that one of the earliest scientists were Muslims. Basically, this is blatantly wrong, right? Science has been done since the ages of the times of Mesopotamians, Sumerians, Egyptians. Martin, I'm getting a feedback from your side.
Okay.
So science has been done since ages, right? But the Greeks were the first ones to, formally, and especially Aristotle and the later Greeks were the first ones to, formally bring science into the world as a tool, basically. And even before that, I mean, it's not that the science wasn't being used. Egyptians used it to their use in building the pyramids and all those things, pretty much. And they were using science pretty much in discovering the world, even though some of their myths were, beyond science per se. But at least they were trying. It's not that they weren't using science. And so saying that the Muslims were the only, and Ibn al-Haytham and Avicenna and al-Razi and all these were the only scientists, that's a blatant lie. I mean, even Ibn Sina, al-Razi and all these mention Greeks and Indian, scientists and medicine guys, pretty much. Al-Biruni talks a lot about India and Indian mathematical systems. So when these guys say, just make a blanket statement like that, yeah, that's a trouble for them, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Let me just take it in turn in the order of conversation. So metaphysics is difficult to pin down, and different people use the word metaphysics in different ways. So it's hard to tell exactly what these guys meant by metaphysics. Metaphysics can be loosely translated to say prior to physics. You could say a metaphysical truth is something like an analytical truth, perhaps something like a square cannot be a triangle, right? So that could be a metaphysical. Some people say that's a metaphysical, or some people may say that there's metaphysics in respect to free will, right? And the metaphysical questions in respect to free will is, what is free will exactly? Is it being able to do something in a particular situation and do otherwise to what you have already done? You had the ability to exercise free will in a way that you could have made a different decision, or does it mean something like you had the ability to contradict the laws of physics or something like that? What is the exact appropriate metaphysics? And there's a conceptual discussion to be had, and there's different versions of free will, like libertarian free will, compatibilistic free will, and you can say that's a metaphysical question or a philosophical question, right? So in that sense, is it intangible? Well, it's more to do with concepts. And so metaphysics doesn't mean we're talking about some supernatural intangible realm. Metaphysics here simply just means that we're talking about this kind of conceptual conversation in this context. So it depends what you mean by metaphysics. So I don't know what these guys are saying when they say metaphysics, but if they're equating it to intangibility or immateriality, they're not one and the same necessarily in all contexts. That would be a very, very particular usage of the word metaphysics if they do, right? And Hashim is
Madan, what sorry, I just wanted to mention that I'm willing to give them this sorry, benefit of doubt that they want to say that intangible in this world, probably, and they probably didn't even mention metaphysics, and
possibly.
they probably didn't even bring it into the metaphysical realm, in a sense, probably.
Yeah,
Because we haven't heard the whole conversation. It's
yes.
just kind of a surmise
I'm
at
just
this
going.
point.
I'm just going on based on what I've heard so far. And did Hashim say anything like I didn't mention the word metaphysics, or is he disputing the particular sort of understanding of metaphysics here? I don't know. Right?
Yeah, maybe.
He simply said that metaphysics doesn't mean that it's outside of this world, and that's kind of loosely correct as well. I mean, you can talk about metaphysical questions in all other possible worlds. You can talk about metaphysical questions in respect to let's say God, and God may not be in this world, or whatever you want to call it, etc. Of course. So metaphysics, when you're talking about metaphysics, it doesn't mean it's not in this world. Like if you say metaphysically, it's just a fact of philosophy that it's like a metaphysical truth that induction works or something. I don't know. That's obviously in relation to this world as well. So metaphysics, obviously, yeah. So Hashim is correct there. But and the guy who's talking, he may have misconstrued it, things not in this world. I think what they were, I think if I can be charitable, that they were talking about was something like consciousness being immaterial and yet being in this world, that there's immaterial substances, right? Like consciousness, right? Feelings, thinking, ideas, these are not graspable, tangible things, and therefore they cannot be explained by the physical universe. So I understand why the hooded man, the non-Muslim here, can understand that it's not in this world, because some consciousness theories thinks that there are two worlds here, right? There's this kind of immaterial world and there's this material world, and they interact or something, or the material world accesses the immaterial consciousness and it resides somewhere else perhaps, or it doesn't reside anywhere. It's this kind of non-locational world. Whether you want to call it a world is kind of difficult at that point. So you can understand why that man in the hood perhaps gone down that line. I think this could be clarified with a bit more lenient charitable engagement, I think, from both parties, perhaps mainly from the hosts. That's what I think there anyway. Yeah, do you want to say something, Philo?
No, I'm just reading comments, and you want to finish your point, and then maybe I'll just take a few comments there. Especially there's only one that I wanted to just take up.
Yeah, and the second thing, you've already mentioned a lot of it, that science has many innovators, creators, originators. There's not one science. This is kind of this progressive form of development that has occurred over the entire human lifespan, maybe more, through creative steps. Really, it was the real formula was laid down, perhaps maybe I think during Greek antiquity, Roman antiquity, etc. To test, check, etc. I mean, you've had Greeks doing kind of like this experimental form of thinking, even when they feed their parrots, right? Seeing what works best, discarding the theories that don't work to see the effects on the data, which is the parrot's health. You see the kind of loose scientific method in application. Maybe Ibn al-Haytham during the medieval period or early Muslim period kind of crystallized it, I would say, to some extent by writing it down or just consciously laying it out. But it wasn't just, I get their point though, they're trying to say that Muslims have made a contribution, but what is the point that this is a very rhetorical use of science that doesn't really have much relevance to what the man in the hood is possibly saying. The man in the hood is possibly saying that there is not that Muslims don't use science, but you don't use it effectively or appropriately, or they reduce its value in the modern day age, right? And they barricade it insufficiently, whereupon a scientist or a philosopher who leans to a naturalism will give it a bit more value, to ask questions and appropriate questions, and give it more weight in certain aspects, right? Which many pure rationalist thinkers who are maybe philosophers don't give. So this might be the dispute between a strongly rationalist school of thinking, or a priori use of philosophy versus a posteriori or empirical methods, right? The attack on the stuff like scientism and stuff, reducing the value of science, and that could be relevant, absolutely. And that debate has nothing to do with Ibn al-Haytham. The fact that some early progenitors of Islamic civilization were scientific enthusiasts doesn't rectify the problem today, where the relevance of science is not as much of high value in certain questions. Because, for example, I'm a philosopher, but I lean or I give more strength to the scientific method more than particular Muslims who want to just lower the value of science, by saying that it's not, by misusing it, I would say. And if that's what the hooded man is saying, then that is completely an issue today. People having attacks on calling normal usages of science, calling that scientism or logical, the bad form of logical positivism that is faded out a long time ago, etc., or etc. Empiricism doesn't always work. This sort of conversation that Hamza Tzortzis was also kind of channeling in the early 2012s, 2013s, and 14s, right? Which is, I would say, an area of dispute between empiricist thinkers and rationalist thinkers. And that has nothing to do with Ibn al-Haytham. The fact that you've got some guys who like science back in the day, who were, by the way, attacked a lot back in the day by a very similar sort of rationalist versus empirical sort of tensions back in the day. It doesn't really give much credence to today's debate.
Yeah, Madan, I think I'm getting feedback, Madan. Yeah. So one of the problems here is when they say that Quran encourages you to use reason and use logic and all those things. I think there is an apparent contradiction that people don't realize, and that is, what if, let's say, a good Muslim thinker who has studied Islam in and out thinks through, reasons through all of this, and comes out on the other side of religion, probably says, no, I don't just believe it. And let's say he has reasoned well enough within the information that he's been presented, he still comes to the conclusion that he doesn't believe that Allah exists, or even Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, pretty much, right? Now what? And let's assume that this God, Allah, really exists. Would he say, okay, no, you I did ask you to think through all those things, to reason well, and with the reason that you were given by me, you came to the conclusion that I don't exist, and that's very well. I'll still put you in heaven, right? Go ahead, heaven is yours, right? That's not gonna happen, right? That's not what says in the Quran, pretty much, right? If you don't, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you just don't believe in Allah, you are gonna be thrown straight away in hell. There are no ifs and buts. There's no condition to it, pretty much. I mean, there are, some Muslim apologists do say that there is a chance that you could be given mercy, but it's so airy fairy that, I mean, it doesn't seem, because shirk is the prime most is the, what do you call, the most fundamental crime against God, basically the deepest crime that you can commit against God. Nothing else compares to it, pretty much. So there is kind of this dichotomy in this question, that it encourages you to question, but it encourages to question what? Basically, to reason out, to use logic, to use your reason. I think it only says that to use your reason as long as you arrive to the conclusion that the Quran is the book of God, and you have to believe in it, and you have to submit to it. That's the only way your reason is going to work. As long as you are on that line, you're fine. As and when you stray from that line, you're gonna be in hell, pretty much, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what I think. This kind of a, they just don't go into thinking all these possibilities, pretty much, right? Yeah, I think they have this cognitive dissonance when they describe all these things, pretty much.
I mean, what's I think the point that you're making. I think the Quran, obviously, the right author of the Quran thought if you reason, you will reach to the most obvious and undeniable conclusion.
Conclusion, right?
And the Quran is the word of God, so it probably thought that it is consistent with reason. So when it says use reason, use logic, that it thought that logically and rationally you can arrive at the conclusion of Islam, and
being true, right? Right.
And also the fact that there are threats and coercion involved may have not crossed his mind that this is actually maybe an emotional thing that could also affect. But I think the stark contrast to the reason-based approach really appears more abundantly when you have this also Iman element. Now, I know various Muslim scholars and philosophers and theologians have interpreted these parts differently, that there is it's part Iman and part reason or something like that. And this is a very long debate that,
So the modern Iman only works once you are in. It's only about Iman, mostly about Iman, basically, right? And every time you're, I mean, see, as you said already, there is a plethora of scholars with different opinions, pretty much, right? There is a segment of scholars who say part Iman versus part reason, basically. But you will also find those kind of scholars who will say, even if once you are in, you're strong, your Iman has to be stronger than your reason. So anything, even if it goes against your Iman, any reason that goes against your Iman, you have to believe that your Iman is on the right way and not your reason. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to point that out. Basically, it's not a concern. There is a there are a few scholars who think that way as well. Probably even majority.
So that's what I mean in terms of the clash between reason and faith. Therefore, becomes more apparent, and that's where it makes him a little bit contradictory in the sense that if reason leads to one conclusion and then Iman suggests that you must put faith in this area, but reason conflicts with it, then it is also almost contradictory to say that reason alone will lead to the result of, of God or the Quran being true, because there are obviously elements that cannot be uncovered through reason alone because it conflicts with reason, right? And various scholars may interpret these things differently to say that Quran never meant that by reason alone you can arrive at everything, but some things, right? That Quran and the Quran and Islam makes sense logically and rationally, but not everything, right? So they might play these kind of gymnastics to try and kind of compartmentalize, to say that the Quran always intended a harmonious relationship or a reconcilable relationship between reason and faith, which itself is problematic because is it really harmonious if certain forms of conflict occur? You know? And yeah, so but taken in a plain face value, in a plain face way, there does seem to be there seems to be a somewhat contradiction there to emphasize reason, but in another breath emphasize non-reason or emotion, to say that emotion should then take over in those difficult parts. It's like trying to have your cake and eat it too, because it means that whatever reason leads to, if it's sound, then obviously that's sound, but if it starts not favoring the Islamic case, then use emotion to kind of guide you. Right?
Yeah, to guide you and abandon those kind of reasoning that lead you astray, pretty much, in a sense, right?
Yeah. So that kind of leads a bit of a kind of a curated system almost that doesn't require that much sophistication, to be honest. That makes it kind of foolproof in the sense that reason and feelings work together. So wherever the gaps in reasoning are, you just fill in the blanks with emotion. Right, but the other thing that I want to say, give an example of today's like modern day kind of de-emphasis on science and over-emphasis on the Quran or rationalist thinking or whatever you want to call it, is that what we mean by science, at least science here, is a stronger emphasis on empirical or observational sort of thinking based on what we learn about the world. If that's kind of like the definition we're kind of going with, through systematic thinking, matching theories and hypotheses and so on, then, for example, let's say there's a conflict between what the Quran says and conflict between what the world is suggesting, right? Let's say the theory of evolution, right? And the theory of evolution suggests that Adam and Eve didn't exist or something like that, and God created Adam and Eve, and the theory of evolution doesn't suggest any of that. It's inconsistent with the theory of evolution, right? A theory of evolution said there wasn't any like first man, there's like anything like that. Now, and the Quran clearly says that the first man and first woman, etc., existed. Well, how do they kind of make this harmonious? Well, is there a conflict now between the scriptures and religion and science? Well, yeah, possibly. Well, they can kind of reinterpret it and think that it never said that. So they kind of rejiggle the scriptural meanings and the words and the language, and say that maybe it's a metaphor or whatever, or play it down, right? But if push comes to shove and it's scripturally there, it's a literal interpretation or something like that, they can't make it out like it's a metaphor. They would value the scripture over the science, and they think that will have more authority over the science. Right, and this might be an example of what I was talking about by certain modern day Muslims devaluing science, because I think here is exactly where the philosophy of science has more merit, in the sense that you don't have that sort of good justification to give more authority to the scripture, right? In fact, the inconsistency or collision course that it has with science is, in fact, a data point that you should consider that lowers the credibility of the Quran, right? But what they would do is say, nope, almost arbitrarily give more prowess to the Quran because it was written by God. But that's where all the philosophical questions regarding the gap problem might become apparent, right? You don't know you've not established that this is an omnipotent deity that knows everything.
Right?
You believe in it, right? You believe in it. You may have some arguments here and there saying there's a designer or something, but the gap problem is basically that all of the philosophical or theological arguments for God's existence is insufficient to meet, apart from maybe attempted arguments like the ontological argument or maybe the moral argument, insufficient to actually establish God's attributes. And therefore, you've got this kind of vague argument from like, let's say, Kalam, cosmological argument or fine-tuning or design or whatever you want to call it. And then you kind of got a scripture, but then you're giving more weight to the scripture versus the science, right? And we've got no a priori reason to think that. Right from the beginning, right? There's no reason to believe that there's an omnipotent being. In fact, if anything, if there's any evidence for scripture, it would suggest that, okay, something's going on here. There's some miracles. But at the same time, there is a collision course with science as well, where it gets it wrong when it comes to evolution. So maybe the most honest opinion that we should be having is that this being isn't omnipotent. This being isn't all-knowing, etc. Right? Maybe he just got it wrong or he's lying, he's deceiving us, or something like that. And maybe a stronger conclusion would be if there's enough conflicts that this wasn't written by a being at all. And that's how certain materialist or naturalist philosophers may kind of weigh it up and emphasize the naturalist theory to say, look, the evidence favors naturalism over the Quran being true. Whereas they won't think like this. And this is what I mean by anti-scientific thinking, where they're not using, I'm not saying it should be exclusively science, but it's philosophy combined with science, right? And
I think, Madin, there are a few other things that you need to combine with it as well. I mean, not just philosophy and science. You need to also combine it with history, basically, and a little bit of common sense as well. Basically, I mean, how much credence? I don't know what epistemological category are testimonies put in. Basically, they're probably their own kind of they have their own framework, epistemological framework. Testimonies, how much credence should be given to something like a testimony? Because majority of the case for Islam or any other scripture or a religion is built on largely on testimonies, pretty much, right? I mean, if you talk about Quran, the earliest Qurans you find so late. Same is for Christianity. So the point I'm trying to make is I'm just bolstering your case that you said philosophy and science, and I'm saying it's more than that. I think you need to add, testimonies as well. You have to weigh in how much you trust those things, because ultimately, to prove whether the Quran is the word of God, Allah, you have to go through all of those things as well. So yeah, I mean, anyway, we have before we talk to Mike, Madan, you have anything more to add, or shall I just take a few comments before we speak to Mike?
I would just say one phrase. I would say the testimony and the historical method and stuff is, I would say, loosely a science as well. But that's just
it is a science, but I would I mean, in a greater science category.
It's not like the top tier sciences, like the fundamental sciences. Yes, it's a bit of a science, but it's a science, I think, in a weaker sense. Yeah.
Right, I agree. I mean, they do follow strict methodologies, pretty much, right? I mean, historical sciences have their own methodologies, and it relies on science as well in terms of dating, carbon dating, and radiometric dating, and all those things. Anyways, let's come back to Mike. We'll take a few comments before we let you join. Right, just give us a minute, right? All right. April Cox had a comment. Hey, I saw you call into EF Dawa. Yes, I did call into EF Dawa. Probably, I don't know. I have called there a few times, and maybe only a few times I get to speak with them. I think who's the guy? Hamza is the guy on EF Dawa. I'm not quite sure. Probably he is, but that guy doesn't have a right attitude to have a cordial conversation. That is something I very rarely say all those things, basically. But yeah, I think he doesn't want to talk to anybody who just opposes his worldview, pretty much, right? Yeah, so I think if we get a chance, Madan, myself, and Kyali will review it. And apart from that, I think April had a few more comments. I think this is a touchy topic. There are majority of the hadiths that talk about it are of the lower age limit. Very few hadiths, and I'm talking about Sahih hadiths, basically authentic hadiths, are on the category of age saying 18 or something like that. So I think that's a really touchy topic, so I'm not gonna go there. I think there is not much. Imran and Abbas, right? Imran and Abbas. I think I did have a conversation with them, and I think Imran had a very weird thought, basically. But I'm not gonna derail this stream on talking about them. Let's welcome Mike. Mike. What do you have to say? I've seen you in a few of these streams. So how are you doing?
Yeah. I've seen you on EF Dawa, maybe Dawa Wise, Hashim, Hamza's and Hamza's Den. I think maybe that's
Right. I keep going
thinking
to these streams, but it's really hard to have a nice conversation with them, basically, because they just try to, they just keep hammering questions after questions and don't let you ask your own questions, pretty much. But yeah, that's perfectly fine. You're fine answering those questions, anyways.
Right.
Not a problem.
They're more than willing to run from your question while demanding you answer their question.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I don't know if it was the same night, but it was about a year ago. I was on Hamza's Den, the arena. I think it was episode 60. And Sharif gave a big, long explanation as to why they believe in the irrational. And I was quite surprised that he actually used the term irrational. I asked if jinn can have sex with humans. And I asked about Gog and Magog, about the how that could physically be possible, that Gog and Magog are trapped, behind a giant rampart in the east, and that their numbers are
iron wall, as they say, right?
Yeah, and so Sharif gave a big long explanation on first you establish, like I think you guys were saying, that the Quran is divinely revealed because they believe in these miracles, that the Quran says the mountain holds down the earth, and they think the pikes within the mountains proves that, or Mohammed said, the fetus is like a leech, and there's one point within the zygote development that it looks leech-like. So, how could he know this? Science has proven him to be a prophet, and therefore they accept everything within the Quran. They never actually did answer my question, but he went on to why they believe in jinn and why they would believe Gog and Magog are mentioned in the Quran, 1890. Because if you believe in the Quran, then you have to believe in everything that's in it. So I
think that's what Martin talked earlier about, like 5 minutes back or so. That the methodology is kind of slightly, once you establish whether something is word of God, and you have to then after that you have to just believe it, that everything in it has to be true, pretty much, right? And I think in one sense it's a really it's a weak approach in a sense. I don't know if I'm using the right word in saying weak approach, basically, because you then after that you just can't question, and the methodologies that you use to come to a conclusion whether it's from some divine being or not are not really foolproof, pretty much, in a sense. So in that sense, I think that methodologies doesn't really work, pretty much. Martin, do you have anything to say on that?
Can you hear me?
I think, yeah. Now we can.
I've come up twice. Can you?
Oh, Martin, really bad feedback from you. Okay, I can. All right, Martin, I had to remove both of you. Now I added you. Yeah, can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Martin. I think it's all right, Martin. I would say you join back again. Basically, something is not right on your side. You step out of the studio and join back again. I think I can see two of you. Maybe I'll just okay. Can you drop out and come back again? Yeah, I think glitch in the matrix, or you can say it's Allah's punishment, basically.
Allah is shutting them down, won't let them spread corruption.
All right, I think we have one more Islamic Sword channel. Mike, would you like to tell our audience what's your worldview?
Oh, I'm an atheist. I'm a kafir, a disbeliever. I've read the Quran and many hadiths, and I don't know if you saw my comment. I was wondering, have you read the book by Al-Ghazali, The Incoherence of Philosophers. He brought up Greek philosophy earlier.
Right, right. We have read, snippets of it pretty much. I have read snippets of it pretty much, right?
Right. I mean, I think
have you gone through? Have you gone through it?
well, the most famous quote of it is, "Fire does not burn the cotton; Allah burns the cotton." That obviously all things are the will of Allah.
Right, right. Yes,
so
that's
it
true.
seems kind of unscientific, and of course, some people actually will blame him for the fall of the golden age of Islam, that he became kind of unscientific. His debate with or argument between him and Averroes over the years was kind of the fall of the scientific part of Islam into a more faith-based, Islam that we see today, where it's just like, well, we just believe it. We don't worry about proving it scientifically or anything like that.
Right. True that. I think that's one of the quotes, very oft quoted quote, oft cited quote, if you want to say it that way. So yeah, I think even Ibn Taymiyyah has had a lot of influence on the kind of slowly drifting away from that scientific methodology. But there was only a around 12th century, up until 12th century, from 8th century to 12th century was the peak of the scientific advancement within the Islamic rulings, basically. And the one who started off was the Abbasid ruler Al-Mamun, basically. And he was the one. And then the Mutazilis were really into science. But then Mutazilis were considered to be heretics themselves, pretty much, by the mainstream Sunnis at that time. But this is, I don't want to derail the topic basically from here, and don't want to go over there pretty much. But that's a long discussion to be had, pretty much.
Sure. Everyone's a Pandora's box to some degree.
I mean,
and it's interesting. I was on EF Dawa and I asked Imran and Abbas, but about Ibn Taymiyyah's fatwa on the Druze, that they should be killed as apostates. And Ijaz was on as well, and he pulled it up and read it. And but it was interesting that he's like one of the great Salafi scholars, but then they kind of said, well, we wouldn't kill all the Druze, we'd only kill their leaders. If you look at the fatwa, it seemed very intolerant of other religions and whatnot.
I think that's you'll always see that. I mean, if you read you read Hadith literature, it's pretty clear that what's going to happen in the last hour, pretty much, right? And I don't want to go in there. That's why I said I think that's a different topic, pretty much. I think.
Right.
Madan, are you back?
Yeah.
Give me.
Hello.
Madan. Islamic Sword Channel. Hold on. Let's talk to Mike first, and then I'll take you in.
Yeah.
Madan.
Yeah. I'm back. I don't know what happened there. It seemed to have kind of duplicated and so on.
Yeah.
But so it's I agree with based on what I've heard briefly with a lot of this, and I think that's kind of like the thing that they've not thought over or thought about when there is a real collision course between scientific stuff in the world that we learn from biology, physics, chemistry, and when that there's a collision course between that and what's in the scriptures, how do we make a reconciliation between the two things? And they kind of just a priori give authority to the Quran, and I don't think they've got any good reason to do so, right? And I just want to say the same thing that I said before. There is something called the gap problem, and I think the gap problem is a profound problem. So everybody, most modern day thinkers, they just want to establish stuff like the Kalam cosmological argument, or they want to show there's a designer, or there's prophecies in the Quran. None of those establish, the gap problem, which is actually demonstrating there's a omnipotent, omnibenevolent, spaceless, timeless creator we should defer all authority to, or something like that. And so as long
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
not the case,
Martin, can I just jump in for a second? Anybody who wants to listen to us talk about prophecies and why they don't work in an Islamic paradigm should search our streams. We have done one stream thoroughly on laying down a proper criteria. Myself, Mahadan Kyali and myself, we have laid down a criteria as to what should be a proper way to, ascertain prophecies, and it's a logical criteria. If you want to deny that, you have to say why it doesn't work logically and philosophically, basically. So yeah, sorry, Martin, just wanted to jump in there.
yeah.
I mentioned that.
So all I'm saying is that I think whenever there's a conflict between what's in the world and what's the Islamic scriptures are saying or hadiths are saying, that is something that lowers the credence that we should give to Islam or Islam being true. And the more we see of it, I think we've lost both of our guests. The more we see of it, the more examples we have of that, it would reduce the credibility of Islam, definitely, because because well, let me give you examples of what this would be. It would be stuff like the empirical failure of prayer. It would be stuff like ambiguous prophecies, etc., that can be better explained through how it came true through a natural yardstick, right? Or failed prophecies, etc. Any other form of collision course with science, like maybe a conflict between that and evolution, right? These would be, the problem of evil as well, right?
Yeah,
And
that's a big problem for them.
Yeah, it'll be like a cumulative case of observations that conflict what the scripture proclaims to be the case. And the only way some Muslims can resolve that is by saying that we give more weight to the Quran. If they concede that there is that issue, there is some, for example, the Quran says X didn't occur or X occurred in this particular way, but the science says Y occurred. Y could be like evolution or whatever it is. That method, they defer to the authority of the Quran over the science, and there's no reason to do that, because unless you've established a priori there is a omnipotent, omnibenevolent being, or something that is more trustworthy than not, and more trustworthy than science, there's no a priori reason to defer to this creature, even assuming that there was some sort of supernatural deity behind the Quran, right? Because we don't know the attributes or the character of this being concretely. What all we have is this kind of set of arguments and a set of miracles, which doesn't fully establish those characteristics, right? It's like somebody who does a magic trick, and let's say it is definitely very astounding that the magic trick is done really well, right? I get a pen and I make the pen vanish. I start flying, but then I also say I am the greatest lover of humankind. I am great in bed, as in I'm great at creating children. Yeah. I'm also a famous painter. Right? It doesn't establish any of those. Everything that I've done shows that I can fly. Wow, very good. It shows that I can make things disappear. Very good. You have this ability, but it doesn't establish the other abilities.
Abilities. I think you have to independently establish all those attributes as well, pretty much, right?
Therefore, we don't have this idea that of the inerrancy of this deity's words. We don't have the inerrancy, and therefore, the best, even if you grant certain miracles happen, let's say the Quran is the linguistic, beautiful word of this creature, and it wasn't written by humans. Even if you thought there were scientific miracles, all it would establish is that the creature has great linguistic abilities, and all it would establish, different to human beings, and all it will establish that the creature can predict the future. It does not establish all knowledge, and it does not establish omnibenevolence. It does not establish any of these other attributes, or that we should defer to this creature all the time, and give more weight to it. Because even though it gets certain prophecies correct, what if there is a collision course elsewhere, like let's say the empirical failure of prayer, demonstrated through multiple studies, then it might mean that he has a deficiency in that area, or he's a liar, or he's a deceiver. You see that?
Exactly.
Yeah, that seems to be an honest view. But
I mean, sometimes, Mahadan, that omnipotence is taken to be like, oh, everything, include everything. Omnipotence could be, omni benevolence, all merciful, and all those things. But that doesn't, yeah, that's a loose definition. That's probably
Yeah,
a tricky.
yeah. Some
And
philosophers think you can derive all the other attributes of God just from one property, like omnibenevolence.
one property of it, pretty much.
Yeah,
But
like
that's
all
not how it
powerful.
works, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
that's not how
Yeah,
it works.
like
I mean,
all
if you
powerful.
suspend that kind of, if you suspend that kind of a definition, what you're doing is you're playing with words and pretty much, mingling definitions. And, in that case, then anything could be true, pretty much, your God could be a dodo, pretty much, in a sense, in that case, pretty much.
Hello.
Yes.
All right. Madan, you want to finish your thought, or maybe let's talk to
No,
something
what I
like
do, what I do know is that I think last time you guys did the Urdu stream, and is it Islamic Sword? He spoke for a
Yeah,
long.
I'm gonna be strict this time, Waqas. Waqas, it's okay if I take your real name. You want me to take your Islamic Swords
No
username?
problem. No
Okay,
problem.
whatever you're
No
comfortable
problem.
with. I don't mind either ways. It's your choice.
In both way, I have no issue.
Okay. One thing I'll request: keep your mic slight bit away from you, because your voice is like it goes in really high decibels, basically, right?
Not
What
only that,
about now?
yeah, not only that, but I think last time, every time I came onto the Urdu stream, it was just one man talking all the time. So we just want to be fair to any other people who want to contribute and etc. Right?
Right.
Madin, here's the problem. Madin, listen. For example, listen. If you want to, you have some claims on Islam. So then I am a person who can argue on that issue. If you want to claim on Islam with philosapiens, he is from your side. He said, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Oh, very good. But if you will not found a counter argument, how can you understand? This is the issue. Hope you understand or not.
Yeah, no, that's not the problem. We've spoken to people at great length about many things. For example, I spoke to Anthony for about more than an hour, right? We speak to people. What I'm saying is that because this is an open stream, and we've had some complaints already in the past where people thought that they were unfairly not given mic time. That's all I'm saying. So we're trying to be fair to. At this moment, we don't have any guests right now.
So we can talk to you for a little bit longer. But yeah,
we do want to restrict the amount of time so that we can be fair to our guests, etc. In respect to counter argument,
my English is Madin. My English is Madin, brother. Listen, my English is not very good, but I will try to give you an accurate answer from Islam. If you have any queries, you can talk with me, because I listen you about, especially about free will. I don't know what is your assumptions or what is your mind telling you about Islam, that what type of free will is in Islam, or like that. So it's better to understand from other about Islam, So if you want to talk about Islam, I will try my level best. If I understand, I will give you the answer.
Sure. Okay. Before Mahadan speaks, I'll set the rules of the conversation, and they are not too harsh, because we have been accused of being too soft, basically. Waqas, we have been accused of being too soft on our callers, basically, and so that's why I'm saying, you take the mic time. That's not a problem. We are here to listen to you. Give you enough chance, but make sure that you don't go, in multiple. Posing multiple problems or multiple points. Just go by point by points, speak for a minute or two at max, let others talk as well, right? So that's the kind of interaction, more healthy, basically. I'm not saying you are not allowed to speak. You should be allowed to speak, even
I understand.
right?
I understand. Philosapians sometimes
and talk respectfully. Don't talk in between, basically. When you say to talk, then you talk, basically, and do not raise your voice, basically,
no problem.
because
no problem.
because if you get excited,
No,
your voice goes
actually,
really high.
don't mind.
Yeah.
I am already telling you. Actually, that's my nature. Don't think that actually I am talking like that, or you think that he's shouting or like. No. It's my natural issue. So I hope you understand this issue. So the first of all, I just want to tell you that sometimes we have to analyze everything from all perspective. It's very important. So I will try my level best to give you the answer in a simplest way. But sometimes the issue is not like you thinking you are. It's very simple. So I try my level best to give all the arguments on that issue. So you are right that sometimes uh, I on a particular issue I can give you a lot of arguments. So I will try my level best to give you a single argument so we can talk more.
Okay, what is
Okay,
the
Madin, if you have any
what,
question about Islam,
no,
you can talk.
I'm just trying to also keep it interesting for our viewers. So what is the issue that you want to talk about?
Any issue.
So did you read the title of the stream? So the title of the stream is "Convince
Yeah,
Us,
actually,
Save Us from Hellfire."
okay. No.
Mhm.
Actually, no. It's not very important because
Okay.
if you
So your
do you
worldview
believe
is,
on
you think
hellfire?
you,
This is my question. This is my question. I am putting my question. Do both of you do you believe on a hellfire?
but you do, right? And Christians
That
do, right?
no. Actually,
So
actually,
question is,
it's not a problem
so
of
this
mine.
is a
Listen,
rhetorical.
brother. Listen.
Hold on. Let me just finish. Just give me 10
If I
seconds.
believe, it doesn't
This is a
mean.
rhetorical
Hey,
question. This
wait.
is a rhetorical
Okay.
question. This is a rhetorical question because you believe, Muslims believe, and Christians believe, and most of our audience who's going to listen to it is going to be either Christian or Muslims, and that's a rhetorical question to them because they believe in it. You understand the point?
Okay.
It's
So
from their
convince
perspective,
me
right?
that after that, okay. So it's like that. If I said someone that convince me that after that there is nothing.
All right.
So your faith, okay, listen, now
You
listen.
you
Your
you
faith
start.
and
You
my
have a
faith,
channel. You have a channel, right?
do you
You have a channel. Hold on. You asked a
philosophian?
question. You
Okay.
asked a question. Hear out the answer, right? You asked a question. Convince me. So why not? You have a channel. Open a stream. Do start streaming with that question. Okay, and we'll join and we'll tell you. Right?
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay. I will. Okay.
Yeah,
That's fair. Okay. So
let me
now
try and
I'm here. So
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
let me try and give an answer to that. I don't think we mean, for example, that we already believe in a hellfire. Of course, we don't. The whole point is, it's like the following: if somebody believes that a plane will crash on December 23rd, right, and there's no evidence for it, well, you wouldn't say to that person wouldn't come up to you. Let's say his name is Charles. Charles is the only man who believes that on December 21st or something, a plane will crash and hit this particular location, right? Now, if you go up to him and goes, "Why do you think that? Please convince us, because we want to be prepared for this if it's true." You're not, he's not going to go say, "Do you already believe it?" Well, if you don't already believe it, it's irrelevant, right? You would say, "No, well, please convince us," right? Of course. So I don't understand the issue here. Of course,
Martin,
we don't.
listen.
Yeah, of course. One minute. Of course, we don't believe in a hellfire. That is the reason why we're saying establish a hellfire, establish that is something that we should be saved from, right? It's another way of thinking about it is also it's a figure of speech. It's meant to be marketed towards certain people, but of course, any sort of danger or risk or tragedy that we're trying to avoid, that's how you would frame it. If somebody came along and said that COVID-19 will take over the world in 2020, right? What would we say? Please demonstrate evidence of it. The person who's saying, let's say there's a scientist who's trying to forewarn us in advance that COVID-19 in 2020 will take over the world and cause a pandemic. The guy won't say, "Well, do you already believe in it?" If you don't already believe in it, it's irrelevant, No, it's not. That is completely irrelevant, right? That fact that you don't already believe in it is greater reason for you to show them evidence. It's normal. This is in normal conversation. Nobody would say, "Do you already believe in it?" And that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Your question seems like when you say, "Do you already believe in it?" Otherwise, it's
Okay.
irrelevant.
Okay.
Can you see what I'm
Now,
saying? Of course, we don't already
now I
believe in
can
it.
give you.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, brother, listen. First of all, you have to understand that's your faith that after death there is nothing. That's your belief. Do you understand, Madin? My belief is that no, after death there is a hellfire and of course paradise. So there are two beliefs. One, you believe because you also doesn't know, or nobody tell you that after death I am nothing, or whatever you are thinking. So obviously we are talking about faiths, but on a utilitarian ground, my faith is more evident and more rational than your faith. I can prove it. If you talk about this, I can ensure you and I will prove it to you that there is a hellfire after death. Because on a utilitarian ground, I already told you, because there are two faiths, not only one faith. My faith is there is a paradise and hellfire, of course, and your faith is there is nothing. Both are depend upon faith. So now on a rational ground, we both talk, and we should understand whose faith is reliable and whose faith is rational. So Martin,
Can
here's
can you
my one
clarify? Can you
question.
clarify Can you clarify utilitarian grounds? What do you mean by it?
Okay, utilitarianism is an argument which does not harm anyone, but it's good for everyone. Maybe Madin know about the utilitarianism. He knows the
No, you said
definition.
you used a
So
specific phrase
actually,
that. Okay, Wakas, you used a specific phrase that on a utilitarian ground I can prove that hellfire exists or something to that tune. Did I hear you right? Right.
because both are faiths, you have no proof and I have no proof. So if
So
you
you
just
agree that
talk
you have no
about
proof.
uh,
You agree that you don't have any proof, right?
you have any proof, oh, that's very good. You can tell me about your proof,
No, I'm
because
asking
I
you
am
right
clearly
now.
said, I am telling you
I'm
that, of course, on a rational ground I can prove. But if you say you have any evidence, I have no an evidence, but I hope you have an evidence that after death there is nothing. So can you prove me? Of course you cannot prove me. So on a rational and logical ground we can talk each other, rather your faith is correct or my faith is correct. So there here's not a problem. Do you ready? You both are ready or not?
Yeah. Go on. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, because I believe that there should be a justice in this world. But when I see the world, I find there is no justice. Suppose one person kill another person, sometime he can be captured, or sometime he cannot captured, or some forces can help him from that issue. Uh, Maybe I'm trying, you both are understanding. So I found that my inner self is saying that there should be a justice in this world, but I'm not finding 100% justice here. Anybody can kill a child or anyone, and it's not 100% confirmed that he should be punished. So on a utilitarian ground, I can understand that if it not happened here, after life it will happen. All the justice will happen. So if you have any answer on that particular question, we can go. We can move on further.
Madan, you wanna go? I just have a mild point, how do you say that if there's no justice is a reason for believing in a? If I understood your argument correct, please correct me if I have not. You are saying that there is no justice, that's why there is a reason to believe in a higher being or some realm where this justice will take place. Is that true?
No, I'm not talking about right now. We are just talking about your belief and my belief. Your belief
No,
is there
I'm
is
saying
nothing after death, and my
I'm
belief
I'm
is
I'm saying you said you don't think that there is at times there is no justice in this world, right? Is that true? You said
of
that, right?
course. So you
Yes.
should
And
rationalize
the
this.
next point
Wait a
you
minute.
said
You should
when
rationalize this statement.
Right.
right.
Let me say something here. Let me say something here. I'm not sure
Listen,
what you mean by.
philosophy. You both.
Madin, go ahead. Madin,
All
go
right.
ahead.
Okay, Madin, talk.
Yeah. So let me just say something. So I'm not sure what you mean by utilitarian way, because that really usually relates to values, questions of preferences and happiness, the utilitarian calculus, if that's what you're talking about, like Jeremy Bentham's. And if you're trying to make an argument that religion is a useful fiction or something like that, or I'm not sure what it is exactly you mean by utility here. Obviously, there's some utility to the truth, but we're talking about what is true and false, not necessarily what's beneficial.
Useful or not,
Yeah,
right? Or
not.
beneficial.
I mean, there's
Not
plenty of things that might be beneficial. That's a fiction. So if the question is regarding whether it's beneficial to society, I may or may not even agree that certain aspects of spirituality might be beneficial to some extent. That might be the case. We can even scientifically show that some forms of spirituality might be psychologically healthy. I think there's some studies. There's a lot of dispute around it. But in this topic, we're trying to know not the benefits, but the truth of something.
Truthfulness of something,
like
right? A proposition, rather.
Yeah, does people exist? How does the sun operate? These are questions of facts, and they're not merely questions of values or preferences, and etc. And so I'm not sure exactly how utility comes into it, but if you are going towards the direction of like a Pascal's wager, which is somewhat like a utility type argument, then I can understand why you might be going in that direction, which is like Pascal's wager is like, if there's only two options, then it's better off going for the option that gives you the most benefits. For example, if there's an afterlife, then you may as well believe in something that would help you avoid the hellfire rather than get infinite. Rather than being infinitely tortured, wouldn't you gamble? It's like a gambler's situation. If there's a 50-50
right, it is a gamble. It's a
So
wager, rather, right? It's a gamble wager,
if there's a
basically.
50-50 chance, you have two options. For example, one option is that there is no afterlife, there is nothing, and there's another option where there is an afterlife, and then if you choose the gamble, which is that there is none, then you risk. You may say there's a 50-50 probability. By the way, that's wrong, but I'll clarify.
Yeah, I think I'll let him clarify his position, basically.
Yeah. So you may gamble that. You may gamble on the. You may say as a gamble, like a little hustle, that isn't it better off believing that there is an afterlife? Because if you're wrong, there isn't.
No.
Right?
Now, let me just finish off. Now it's my turn. I am understanding.
Yeah. If let me just finish off the point. If you're wrong, then nothing happens, so you don't lose anything. But if you're right, if you're right, then you don't lose anything. But if you're wrong, then you face the possibility of going into hellfire.
Eternal punishment, right?
Yeah, but that still won't show that there's good reason to believe in religion.
Yeah, Madan will tackle Pascal's later on, but let him clarify his position, right?
Yeah. So clarify your position.
Okay, first of all, Madin, listen. This is not the way to justify your faith. Actually, there is an issue because your faith is there is nothing after life. I already told you. So on a utilitarian ground, I said that it makes comfort to everyone that there will be a justice after life. So now you have two choices. One is that you will give me more comfort than this. For example, if on a utilitarian ground you want your argument strong, so you should give me more good rational argument on behalf of this to understand your faith. But on my if I talk about my argument gives satisfaction to every person. So it is understandable, because we believe now, again I am talking about, and it's not only a belief, it's a rational argument. Everything is everything have a purpose. When I see anything, even an ant, even a sand, even whatever you take in front of you. Listen,
Vikas, hold
philosophers,
on. Vikas,
please
hold
complete
on.
my,
No. You are moving
yeah.
on from your previous argument to a next argument. So that's why
No,
I'm
I am
stopping
not
you.
moving on previous
You are
argument.
moving
Wait a
on
minute.
from
Wait a
your
minute. I am sticking.
hold on.
I
Hold
am
on.
giving
Hold
the
on. I'm not
explanation.
gonna let you
That's
continue.
not fine.
I'm not gonna let you continue. You are moving on from your first argument about justice, which Madan pointed out that you're whether you're asking about it from a utilitarian perspective, which means are you putting a weight on a wager? Do you think that that argument you want to shove away, and then we can move on to the argument from purpose? Do you want to shove it away?
Listen, no. Because on a
Then
utilitarian ground, you already.
stick to one argument first and then move on to the next one, right? Because
Okay,
that's going to
okay,
confuse a lot
okay.
of our audience, basically, right? So that's what
Okay.
exactly
So,
you did in the last stream as well. Keep jumping away from a point to point. Let's finish one point first. You said you started off with there's
okay.
no justice.
Can I
Let's
talk
stick to
now?
that argument first.
Philosapiens,
Yeah,
can I
go ahead,
talk?
go ahead. But you if you promise
Okay,
to stick
okay.
to the argument from justice, right?
Okay. On my second argument should be a purpose, but right now,
Yes.
I'm talking sticking to this particular argument, because I have a lot of arguments related to afterlife, so
Yes,
there
one
is not
after
a
other. You
problem.
can come on 10 different streams. No, nobody's stopping you. Yeah,
No
yeah. Go ahead.
problem, no problem. Because now there are two faiths in front of each other. So now this is a battle between two faiths. Your faith is a blind
Let me
faith is. Madin, listen, brother, listen. Now it's my turn, please. Your blind faith is that after life there is nothing. My faith is that after life there is something. Because I have a lot of arguments. So hope you can counter my argument and you give me a better argument on this to uh, justify your faith. So issue is that on a utilitarian ground, Mahadin, you should give me an answer on this argument, on a particular argument, because this is the way that we move on and on. So first, my argument on a utilitarian ground, I said that everyone want a justice. Everyone have a human, you call humanity. So everyone thinks that there should be a justice. So on this behalf, when we see that there is no justice in this life, and it's possible that someone will be enjoying his life after doing some criminal activity, but after life he will be punished. That thing will satisfy me. Okay, no issue. Even though that thing morally give me some good vibes, even for myself, that I will not do this wrong thing, because after life I have to give the answer on this particular issue. So now you should, first of all, you should give me a better argument on this about your faith. Okay, so now it's your turn. uh, you should give me on a utilitarian ground, you give me a good argument that will satisfy me on a utilitarian ground, that okay, no, there is no afterlife. So one by one we will move on.
Okay. So so you're trying to say that if there's like a utilitarian argument, then that's good reasons to believe in something, and we might just reject that connection between the two things. It doesn't give you good scientific or epistemic or philosophical reason to believe in the truth of something, that is more probable than not. That's what we're talking about. So your question or your argument has nothing to do with whether it's true. Your argument is more to do with whether or not it's satisfying.
Emotions, basically. It's more based on feelings. Yeah, it's
Right.
feelings.
So then we're talking past each other. You're talking about a different topic, and we're not talking about the same topic. We're talking about whether or not it's real, actually there, and you're talking about whether or not it's good psychological benefit to believe in it. And as I already said at the beginning, even if that's the case, that has no relevance to this particular topic, which is whether or not Islam is actually true, not just it feels good to believe that there's a divine celestial jurisdiction where.
Now, where is Islam? Right now, we are not talking about Islam.
Right, doesn't matter. You know what I mean. Well, you have a particular justice system, right? You're obviously thinking.
We are talking about afterlife.
But, well, the afterlife has no meaning without any particular sort of meaning. Otherwise, you can't do the utilitarian calculation. How are you going to do the utilitarian calculation?
So do you have any utilitarian argument, a good one that will feel
hold on. You said it's my
everyone
turn.
happy?
Hold on. You said it's my turn. The second problem is that you said there's only two options, and there's not two options. There's an infinite permutations of options. For example, it's not just simply there's nothing, and there is this justice system. There is an injustice system, and there's a variations of justice systems. There's infinite different types of possibilities. If we're not talking about any of the if we're not talking about how to prove something actually being true and just what is satisfying, then I can think of an infinite number of different satisfying sort of justice systems, and I can think of an infinite number of unsatisfying justice systems as well, in unjust systems. So why are we thinking that it's just those two?
It's just why we are thinking that only Islamic justice system is going to be the only one, basically.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? You can
he's
have
not mentioned
myriads of many different
right now I am talking about justice. I am not talking about what is justice or not. I am talking about justice. So everyone believes that there should be a justice. Maybe hope you are also a human being, so you also believe on justice. So I want a best argument related to your faith, your blind faith, that will keep me on a utilitarian ground that this is the better option.
Right.
So next one I will move on. On the next one is also a purpose. So I will talk about purpose, but this time
we are not finished with
Yeah, we've not moved on from this. First of all, our question was prove to us, evidentially, factually, whatever you want to call it, that there is an afterlife, and that is more to do with facts and not whether it feels good. You've come along now, changed the game, and said, give you an argument to show why you should feel better about why you should do a utilitarian calculation to think why it'd be better off to believe there isn't an afterlife, and that's a completely separate question. I've never said to you, we've never said that one is satisfying or not satisfying. We're not talking about satisfaction. So you have a satisfaction belief, which is like a fairy tale, right? And we're saying, why is the fairy tale true? Which is a different question. You're trying to say the fairy tale is satisfying. Maybe so. Who cares, right? Because in this conversation, we're saying, why is the fairy tale true, not whether it is satisfying. Can you see that? Right? And like I said, it's not just one or the other. It's not just total non-existence after you die, because we never said that that's the case. That's necessarily the case. That's our belief or something like that. And furthermore,
okay, Madin. Okay, we move on.
No, it's not okay.
We move on.
Why is it okay? I'm not finished.
I understand.
Right.
I understand. You have no utilitarian ground on behalf of utilitarian ground. You have not a good argument. So move on.
No. Wait. You have no factual basis for why Islam is true. This is why you give me a fairy tale argument.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
Right?
You have no. Okay. You have no fairy tale, Madin brother. You have no fairy tale argument. Okay. Now you happy? If you don't call that utilitarian argument, I am talking about fairy tale argument. Okay. Now move on. Can we move on? Because I know when I give you all the arguments, You have nothing to say, just have a blind faith that okay, there is no afterlife. But you cannot give me one argument that will prove your faith. That's the issue. I can give you a lot of arguments. That's the issue.
But Islamic Sword, if you keep talking, there's so many things to unpack. Maybe we would give you an argument eventually if you let us talk, right?
Give me a utilitarian argument, which keeps everyone happy.
You're not even. No, that's all right. Look, I can give you a utilitarian argument that keeps everybody happy, but it doesn't show that it's true. For example, it'll be very. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Let me finish. It'll make everybody happy. It will make everybody happy if we blindly fool everybody thinking that they have $1 million in the bank, that the most best looking people in the world, that they're 7 foot tall, that their wife is Aishwarya Rai. You know what I'm saying? It'll make everybody happy, but is that true? The question that we're discussing is, are those things
even
true?
bigger than that, Madan, that everybody is going to go to heaven no matter what. That's the biggest thing.
Okay, I understand. You just want to criticize the argument, but you have not a better argument. So we move on. Okay. Now the second chapter is
No.
Okay, let the people decide. Let the people decide.
Hold on. Yeah, I'm criticizing your. Of course, people have decided. I'm criticizing your argument first, and then I will go into our argument. Can you not see that? We take it in turns, right? So you have
let's have a poll by audience, whoever is listening, see how good or bad Waqas's argument is.
No, that's not the issue. Philosophy, don't waste my time. Also, please.
Let people decide why you're saying those things.
In the end, everyone should be conclude. No problem. So the second is. Now the second thing is, my second argument is also a dangerous argument about afterlife.
We aren't done with the first argument as yet. So you concede.
Because I know you are just criticizing. Oh, this is a joke. This is a fairy tale. Okay, so I understand that you have no argument, just to criticize my argument. So we should move on.
Waqas, you don't get it. You provided an argument. Of course, I'm going to criticize it, just like you're criticizing arguments as well.
But then, because you are not defending your belief, your blind belief, your blind faith, you are not defending him just to criticize me. There is nothing. Yeah, there is a empty hole. If you do that I argue, I criticize. Oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. That's not the issue. Because
you talk too much.
In academic way, Madin, brother, listen. Listen, in an academic way, if you
put his volume down. Put his volume down. Yeah. Put his volume down. As I said to you, we were criticizing your argument, and then I'm going to put forward an argument for why maybe there's better arguments to think that when life ends, it is very likely consciousness ends as well. Unfortunately. There is arguments for that, but we were criticizing your preference-based arguments first. We're doing it in turns, in a logical order, in a systematic order, right? In fact, that shows that I'm being fair. I'm fairly, first of all, detecting the flaws in your argument, because we're talking about whether something is true, and you're talking about whether something is satisfying. Lots of things are satisfying, for example, and it might make you happy.
Because it's a utilitarian argument. Do you understand the utilitarianism? Do you understand this?
No, I don't think you understand it.
I don't think, Waqas, you understand it. You're
yeah.
Okay, open the utilitarianism. Open the utilitarianism.
You don't need to open it.
Concept.
Waqas, you don't understand it.
If you perform,
we should see the definition. I don't know, maybe you have another definition, but I am talking about the universal definition.
You have zero clue about what you're talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Utilitarianism, there's various different definitions of utilitarianism, but it does not necessarily pertain to what is true, right? It just simply means you maximize.
There is my last question. Do you have any utilitarian argument on your belief, on your blind belief?
Do you have any actual
argument? Hold on, Madan, hold on.
If you don't have, then we should move on. You already criticized my argument, so now we should move on. Because you don't. Okay, so again, philosophers, do you have any argument?
Listen, you bring in a false argument
Okay.
that doesn't pertain to what we are looking for, right? We are
I
looking for
don't listen, brother.
a
Listen,
truthful truth
philosapiens.
proposition argument, basically. You
No problem.
bringing an
No
argument from a
problem.
utilitarian perspective,
Utilitarianism it
which
means
we are not asking. We
okay.
can give you, but we just wanted to criticize your argument. That's all it is,
Okay,
pretty much,
okay,
right?
okay, okay, okay.
If you
Now
want to
give me
move
the
on from it,
argument. On a
if you want to,
utilitarianism ground, give me an argument on your blind faith. Give
No,
me an argument.
Waqas, we reject the premise here that utilitarianism is a pathway to truth.
yes.
It means you have nothing to say to give everyone happiness.
Yes, but it doesn't
Okay.
mean it's true. If I drug
So
all of the population, no. If I show a
So-
utilitarian, no, hold on a minute. If I show a utilitarian argument that if I take everybody in the human population and put them on drugs and it makes them happier, and that drug hallucinates a imaginary pony, it won't make that imaginary.
do you morally believe drug is good? Do you morally or rationally believe
don't
that
jump
drug is
around.
good for human being?
Don't, hey, Wakas, don't jump
So why
around.
you are giving those
Let's
type
stick
of
to, hold on,
examples which are invalid?
no. You
You are
don't move
giving
on. You don't
you are
jump around.
giving false. You both are giving false
No, we are
argument
talking-
on a
everybody can
utilitarian
see.
ground.
If you want to
You are talking
understand
about
how you're
drugs. That
faring,
if you give everyone a drugs, that's very good. Are you
Wakas,
insane? I'm
that's why
saying.
nobody takes you in their streams,
Do you
because
understand
keep talking and you
what you
don't
are saying?
understand when somebody else
Do
is
you
talking. You
understand
have to
what
stop.
you are saying?
You
Put his
understand?
volume
Wakas,
down. Put his
Wakas,
volume
you
down.
understand why nobody
Okay.
takes you?
Do you
Put his
You
believe
understand that?
that?
Hold on.
Okay. Do you
Hold on.
believe?
Below, mute him.
No, I have put you in the stream below because you don't understand how a conversation is carried. Because you need to learn. Basically, you don't know jack about philosophy. You have no clue what you are talking about. You don't understand what argument is. You don't understand what we are looking for. You know what truth propositions are. You don't know what utilitarianism is. What do you know? Come on, man. And you just keep coming on our streams and just keep shouting. At least learn the courtesy to argue. At least learn how to argue, right? That's at least one thing. That's a starting point. We'll teach you how to um, make good arguments, right? You're on the stream, but at least make sure you don't speak while somebody else is talking, right? We give you enough time.
Actually, my battery
on.
is too low, Philosapiens. I am trying to give my all the arguments one by one.
No, you
That's
have
the
to.
issue.
We haven't finished the first argument. How can we move on to the next one without finishing the first one? So you concede that that's a bad argument in terms of providing the truthfulness of your of a proposition, basically.
On a utilitarian ground, if you have a good argument, then please
you
show me
learned
that
this
argument.
word. You seem
Regarding
to
your
have
faith.
learned this new word from somewhere, and then you just keep using it, basically.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's the problem. Now, can we move on? Because I know you will never give me a good argument that will satisfy everyone.
Waqas,
Wakas, I'll give you one good argument. Hold on. All right. Everybody goes to heaven. Everybody, irrespective of their religion. That's
Okay.
gonna have
So congratulations, you become okay.
For
Philosapiens, congratulations. Congratulations, you believe on paradise. That's very good. It's an improvement.
I'm
now
not
we have to move on.
That's a no, I don't believe in it.
I'm happy.
I'm saying
Philosapiens, I'm
giving
happy.
you a feel good factor.
So you are giving me the argument that you don't believe on that argument.
No, I'm giving you.
Okay.
I'm giving you
I'll
an
be joined.
argument. If you didn't get the argument from drugs, so I give you an argument from
Philosapiens,
right. It's
Philosapiens,
equivalent
you
to
are
drugs.
my funny brother.
Right.
Really, I love you. Really, I
Right.
love you. You are my funny brother.
Because you didn't get the argument
Okay.
from drugs, I gave you the argument from another drug, basically. You
Because
understand?
drug is morally wrong. Everyone know. Listen, brother, listen.
See,
Drug is morally
equivalent to
wrong.
drug,
Everyone know
basically.
that.
Waqas,
It gets
you're
you
not
high.
using your
It gets you
intellect.
high.
You're not using your
understand?
intellect. right?
So you cannot use such type of things which is morally wrong to interpret your to give an argument on a utilitarian base. You understand? Do you understand? You are already.
You do not
In the other words, I have to say, Madi, listen. In the other words,
no, you don't. Be quiet. I'm going to drown you out.
do you like criminal activities?
I'm going to drown you out. I'm going to drown
It
you
means
out.
you like criminal activities.
No, be quiet. Be quiet. Yeah, there we go. So that's not how. If you're making an argument from creating happiness, it doesn't really matter because from a utilitarian framework, there isn't any specific moral barriers as long as it creates happiness and generates pleasure. You just don't seem to realize that. If, for example, the drug on net value, in terms of net profit, if you want to call it, generated more happiness and caused less pain, and it was the best equilibrium to set on the utilitarian calculation, then the drug would be the best thing to do, and that would be the moral thing to do, based on utilitarianism.
That's for seller. That's for seller, not for buyer. Okay. That's not for seller. I'm not talking about seller. Whole the humanity. We are talking about whole the humanity.
Wakas, and you're not getting it. And the specific example doesn't matter. And my point is,
we should move on purpose. Now,
whether you
Madin, I understand. Now I want to move on purpose. Now we should talk about purpose.
No, Akas. And furthermore, the specific example doesn't really matter. It could be a drug, it could be a chair, it could be like an artificial intelligence, it could be anything that creates a hallucination, virtual reality. No, stop telling people to listen. Stop telling people to listen when you're chatting rubbish. Right?
Drug. If you want to say that drug will enjoy you, it doesn't mean drug will benefit for every human being. So it is wrong. It is a wrong argument.
You've not even performed an empirical examination to demonstrate that it will generate more happiness at all yourself. So you just assume, for example, that these things would generate happiness. You've gotten no laboratory or psychological examples or anything that this will generate happiness. And right, I'm just finding this funny, this conversation.
It's just dropped out. I think it's always a shouting game with him, pretty much, right? I mean, he just doesn't understand the parallels that we are drawing between even sending everybody to heaven. It just works like a drug, pretty much. You can keep everybody high on a drug, saying you can get the maximum pleasure out of this drug forever.
Philo,
right?
I think it's worse than that. He doesn't seem to understand even the basic things that we're saying, that we reject the connection between utilitarianism and truth in terms of
I'm saying even if we want to go down to proving him that's let's grant him that, okay, let's talk about utilitarianism from his perspective. We don't believe that, of course, but I'm saying even from his perspective, why he's wrong, basically.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
Yes, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm just saying that he didn't even understand that part, and the fact
he
that
doesn't even understand that part. I mean,
he just avoided it. Just shows that he's either not an honest interlocutor, or he just doesn't understand. His intellect is
incapable of understanding, I think.
Yeah, and I would say that he out of everybody that we've entertained, I've not discussed anything with Wakas before. You guys have. In my personal experience, from everybody that we've entertained on this show, that shows the biggest level of communicational disparity.
I agree. I think I totally agree, because even with I don't want to name the names, pretty much, at least those people are calm when they're listening or somebody else is talking. I think Wakas just doesn't understand that you have to let somebody else talk before you speak, basically. I mean, you just have at least cordial conversation. At least let somebody make their own point.
Yeah.
In any case, I think I think he's I don't know whether he said his battery was low.
Right. And there's other things that you can mention in terms of well-being and utilitarian calculations, etc. There's a plethora of different ways of arranging society and having beliefs that could lead to fruitful and happiness-inducing comas that would, on a utilitarian calculation, create a more happy society. None of those actually pertain to epistemic truth. We're talking about epistemology, and we're not talking about whether or not the belief is able to produce happiness. And if you wanted to produce happiness, there could be a variety of different arrangements. And Wakas has not done anything to demonstrate that is the most optimum equilibrium to set, right? In terms of arranging society, in terms of a religious belief, or one particular religious belief, or one of the many general ones, right? I've given contenders to that, for example, maybe like a virtual reality where there isn't any heaven or hell, there's just happiness, total bliss. Everybody's, virtually simulating a heaven-like experience. But that does not still prove the truth of heaven existing. In fact, by definition, what I'm talking about is a hallucination, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right,
I mean, that's why. I mean, he just doesn't understand these examples being given. I mean, he
right,
just didn't understand the analogies pretty much, right? Well,
right, yeah. And he's not
yeah.
said anything about the link between the disconnect between utilitarianism and whether something is true. The fact that I might believe I'm the most handsome man in the world that makes me happy, doesn't mean I'm the most handsome man in the world. The fact that somebody is 5 foot, maybe a man who's 5'2" is very, let's say, short, but compared to the average. If we somehow fool him into believing he's 6'3", is that going to improve his life? Yes.
And no, and he's happy about thinking
Yeah.
that he's 6'3". Does that is
Yeah.
that useful? Basically, I don't know.
It could be. It could make him more productive. It may happier, increase his self-esteem. Let's say it does. Does that mean he is actually 6'3"? No.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about epistemic truth, not instrumental emotional value, right? Or happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, maybe.
So Wakas has made a bad case for why heaven and hell is a good fairy tale at best, right? A psychological sort of bandage.
I think, Madan, we have a few comments. Let's take those comments. I don't know. I don't know what this guy meant. Is he saying we are monkeys or something like that? Probably, yes.
Yeah, he spelt it wrong though.
Yeah, maybe. All right. What I want to know is the people that gave you these secular societies believe in a God themselves. They got that all-seeing eye everywhere. They have power over you. All right. Why should I believe you atheists when these people in power believe in an entity themselves? Clearly, that entity gave them power over you. I think because natural body death is a pointer to all generations from generation to generation.
Yeah, so in terms of an argument for example, so his premise is entirely wrong. Give me a utilitarian argument. Well, why should he? That's not what we were talking about, and I'm not interested in giving you a utilitarian argument, right? But in terms of a factual argument, if I could give you a factual argument as to why there might not be an afterlife or heaven or hell, I can give you plenty of factual arguments. For example, any argument that discredits a religion or all of the world religions, right, demonstrates that many of the concepts regarding afterlife and heaven and hell are human-made, and therefore that it's highly likely to be a fiction. But that's not the only thing that you might think is the case. You may look at the fact that things cease out of existence. For example, when sodium chloride decomposes, it breaks down into sodium and chloride ions, and it kind of ceases out of existence. And everything in the world is subject to entropy and breakdown and thermodynamics and so on and so forth. And also the brain will decay and decompose and so on and break down. Now, if we consistently through induction, through probabilistic thinking, for example, know that things break down and decay and matter decay, it changes from one form to another, and your consciousness, it applies to the brain as well, that your consciousness will also cease out of existence. That's another argument, right? We don't, for example, think for anything else that it will continue or persist. For example, when the flame goes out of existence, we say the flame has gone. We don't think the flame, for example, has gone into some immaterial transcendent world and it will continue somewhere there. Now, of course, we can't definitively rule it out, but we have good reasons to think it ceased out of existence, and we have no other reason to think that it continues, right? All the reasons suggest it ceased out of existence, and there's no reason to think it continues, which is a good enough reason itself. So this is more of a probabilistic argument, not like a ironclad type argument that there is no afterlife. What it means is that when your consciousness breaks down, It's just like everything else breaks down. It ceases out of existence as well. Okay, and there's other arguments you can look at. If parts of your brain breaks down, for example, you lose that sense, you lose hearing, you lose sight, etc. So inductively, we can say that the more of your consciousness you lose, the more consciousness you lose. The more brain is damaged, the more consciousness you lose. Therefore, it makes sense to think that when your brain completely goes into cessation, that you lost all your consciousness, and consciousness does not continue.
Right. I think I just want to reorient audience onto what we have been talking about. I think we had a guest caller named Islamic Sword Channel, and he tried to present his argument. And first of all, his objection was, why are we using something in our title which we don't believe in, and which is that convince us, save us from hellfire. And his objection was basically that why are we using hellfire in our title when we don't believe in it? And our point basically was that we can use it because we want to hear it from you, and because you believe it. And if you don't believe, you may have good arguments to convince us pretty much from that. And that's exactly.
I mentioned this point just before. It's a silly thing to say because everything goes like that. Like if somebody says COVID-19 is going to take over the world and become a pandemic in 2020, right? Nobody, if you ask the person, how do you know COVID-19 is going to become a pandemic in 2020? If he responds by saying, well, if you don't already believe it, then there's no point. Why would you ask that question if you don't already believe it? Well, you'd be like, you laugh him. He'll be the laughing stock if you said something like that, right? Like, of course, I'm going to ask you if I don't already believe it. That's the whole point, right? Right? If you think, for example, 9/11 was an inside job, right? Do you say to the person who's skeptical about it, well, if you don't already believe in it, why are you asking questions? Please prove to me 9/11 was an inside job.
Exactly.
You don't go to a court case and you say, if the judge asks you, please, prosecution, prove that the defendant murdered the victim. The prosecution won't turn around to the judge and say, well, judge, if you don't already believe in it, why are you asking that question? That's a stupid question. But the same applies to this question.
Yeah.
It's just
the next point Vikas made was, then he said he brought in an argument from utilitarianism, basically, in a sense that saying that there is a wellness in having religion from a utilitarian perspective, because it gives you a sense of justice to after the life ends, pretty much. And in that sense, it keeps societies happy, right? And this is not the question, basically, and we did talk about it at quite a length, that this is not a barometer to judge whether religion or God is true or not, basically. So yeah, I just wanted to reorient the audience into what the conversations we were having in past maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
40 minutes
Plus, let's even go with the premise that on a utilitarian basis is beneficial. Did he justify the premise? He just claimed that it would be justifiable. He didn't show any psychological or sociological or anthropological studies showing that this is the best perfect equilibrium to have to create happiness, right? He didn't do that examination that belief in an afterlife necessarily creates that sort of happiness, because actually there's plenty of studies showing that it doesn't necessarily. For example, how do we go around empirically demonstrating that? Well, you may look at religious societies, compare them to non-religious societies or something like that, right? And we see some of the most happiest societies are the most non-believing societies. For example, the Nordic societies, which rate high on happiness, much higher than other countries, and so on and so forth, right? And this could be due to many factors. We can't have an adequate comparison because there's certain social systems and egalitarian systems that produce that, perhaps, compared to some societies in illiteracy or poverty. But then you see a very highly industrial societies, like in America, areas of America, or areas within Nordic societies themselves, like in Denmark, for example, which are also equal in other respects, like equal in economy, equal in other demographics, etc. And yet, the non-religious areas tend to have higher happiness-producing
Societies or groups,
yeah,
basically.
studies confirm that. Yeah, which shows that, for example, the belief in an afterlife isn't as if you want to make that as a empirical evidence for utilitarian argument, it won't work, because it's showing that in fact the Nordic societies are more happier, right, without a belief in God. So
I think an argument, Madan, could be had that most of the majority of the Muslim societies probably are, if you talk about the hellfire, basically, a lot more people will be still worried in a Muslim society, because they are not really sure whether they are going to heaven or hell. Pretty much,
yes,
majority of the people are still worried that they'll be, even after believing so fiercely and so dedicatedly into one God and believing in all the prophets
yes,
and the last prophet and all those things, are probably still going to hell, pretty much, and that
yes,
puts an extra burden on their,
exactly. And this is
and
why
that's one of the problems
yeah.
of it, pretty
Yeah, and
much.
this is why the cartoonish sort of kind of reformulated version of Islam that Waqas was talking about is completely a caricature and a distraction from the reality, because the reality is far more complicated, not so simple, which is you just die and you go to heaven. There's sinners and sins, and there's a theological system that needs to be established. There's a caliphate. There's a justice system here. There's things that can lead you astray, and all of this can create confusion and unhappiness, and furthermore, paranoia as well.
The
Yeah,
constant
and
fear
fear.
of getting,
Exactly. And so when you do a utilitarian calculation, you've got to be very precise. You've got to get a population sample, maybe you've got to get 20. That sample should represent maybe lots of people, and you should measure it properly and demonstrate empirically that, for example, this variable is producing this much happiness. Measure it, quantify it. He's not done any of that. He just said, "Oh, religion."
it's going to be a weighted average. It's not just going to be a simple average, pretty much,
Yes,
right? I mean, how much fear, how deep a fear you have,
yes,
how good a feeling you have, how deep a feeling you have. These are going to be weighted averages, not just the simple plain and simple averages,
yes,
So,
yes. And furthermore, he didn't even ask whether we actually believe in or whether we're utilitarians. We're not utilitarians. I'm not a utilitarian, right? I'm
right,
not a
right,
I'm not a Jeremy Bentham utilitarian anyway, either for truth
yeah,
or morality, right? I
right.
take utilitarian to some extent in a very, 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 very attenuated fashion, but utilitarian can lead to mass disasters, right? It might be
Exactly.
utilitarian, for example, kill all the old people and kill all the, because it's net beneficial to have redirect our resources elsewhere. For example, why don't we just kill all the poor people who are,
Yeah,
you know,
just to emphasize, this is
yeah,
not Mahdi's or our thoughts.
yes.
It's just an example. Nobody should, take a clip out of it and then
Yeah,
put
we
it.
don't think utilitarianism is a good moral point of view, and he
Yeah,
didn't
I
want to
know,
go
no,
and establish.
Madin,
He
I'm
just
just talking
assumed,
about the examples you're giving, because somebody might come along and say, "Oh, these guys think it this way." No, that's not what we are saying. I just wanted to emphasize that pretty much.
yes,
Yeah, I mean, these examples, somebody might, if just opens this stream and listens to, Martin saying, "Oh, kill all these people." Yeah, no, that's not exactly what we're
yeah.
saying.
So
We're
yeah,
criticizing why utilitarianism has a problem, and
mhm,
that's exactly that, because your ultimate goal is the net benefit of the society, pretty much. And it's a very vague term, because it doesn't take into account how long, basically. If
mhm.
something gives you a benefit by, within 50-year period or 25-year period, but it's devastating for the current population, a utilitarian might just go ahead with it, pretty much. So yeah,
Yes.
so that's a problem.
Okay,
So
I think maybe we should start thinking of closing the stream, simply because I do have work tomorrow, and I did think we'll do about 2 hours, and we get
yeah,
into
I think we should, let's see if anybody else wants to join for
yeah,
maybe
maybe
a bit,
5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes.
5-10 minutes or see. Uh, all right, Haneen, okay, all right. I can't pronounce that name. If you want to, uh, Haneen, if you want to join in and tell us why we are wrong, maybe you can tell us by joining in. I think I have the link up here somewhere. I think link should be pinned. So, but if you cannot find, I'll maybe just post it once again, right? And you can tell us why what we said doesn't make sense to you and seems like trolling to you. All right. The link is right here. Reflective Journey says people will buy bizarre claims like that rather than admit that they are wrong. All right, true. Okay. All right. If nobody joins in, maybe in 2 minutes or so, I think before we close in our stream, what I'll do is just say everybody who's watching so far is to subscribe to our English only channel, which is at the rate Unveiling Faith. You can see it in the banners that's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And also, if you want to support us by any means, think of supporting us at patreon.com/philosapiens or at buymeacoffee.com/philosapiens or via chats and super chats, super stickers, however you want to do it. And the least you can do is to just, share our channel to anyone who would like to listen to deep philosophical conversations. And yeah, I mean, after the stream is over, maybe you'd like to comment underneath the stream or the video and express your questions or, doubts you have, or even the refutations of some of our arguments you may have, basically, or any feedback you may have, basically, as to how we can, what we should do next, or a kind of stream you would like us to do. So just let us know in the comment sections later on. So with that said, I think I don't think anybody else is joining as of now. Mahathir, you want to have a closing remark?
I would say that if people like Wakas wants to talk about philosophy, they must read about the philosophy that they're talking about. Like, if you're going to be talking about utilitarianism, first understand what it is. That it doesn't relate or pertain to epistemic truths. Something that creates happiness doesn't necessarily mean it's true. 1, 2, if you're going to make a claim about
Right.
an argument, demonstrate it empirically and show that it actually creates more happiness. 3, if it does, if you make a claim about utilitarianism, at least try to think that whether or not your interlocutors subscribe to utilitarianism. They may not. They may not be utilitarians. Like, I'm not a utilitarian, right? I'm a deontologist.
Exactly.
Why are you talking about utilitarianism? 4,
Right.
what's the fourth point? And if you're going to think that utilitarianism, and the fourth point is that he actually made a claim that drugs are immoral. Well, under utilitarianism school of thinking, people like Jeremy Bentham, who formulated it, actually thought that rights and morals were like things on obstacle. What's it called? Sticks. Rights were only things that were lifted up on sticks. He didn't say that exact expression. It was a paraphrase. Lifted up on like a pedestal, right? There is no such thing as laws and rights. He thought that everything can be factored through right from the foundations, right from the beginning, through utilitarian thinking. Meaning, if on net benefit, in terms of averages or whatever you want to call it, however the utilitarian calculation formulated, if it produces net value for humanity, then whatever that thing is, it should become moral, right? So if that relates to drugs or promiscuity or killing people, murdering people, then that would become good, because rights don't exist. Rights-based perspectives don't exist according to this school of utilitarianism, because rights are trumped by the happiness factor. If it creates more happiness, then you can rape somebody. That's the kind of immoral, kind of counterintuitive, counter morality type of conclusions that Jeremy
Conclusions that you come through. Yeah.
So
utilitarianism.
in one breath, Wakas tries to say under utilitarianism, but then when you try to go through the utilitarianism route and say, what if we just drugged people and that made people happier? He goes, oh, drugs are immoral, but he's just
on what counts. Yeah, he's mixing deontology with utilitarianism. Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So on what grounds? Because under utilitarianism, if it creates more happiness, then the drugs are moral. So he doesn't understand utilitarianism. Go back to school, then come back, then we can have a conversation.
Right. I think he needs to read up a little bit on philosophy, come back better prepared, and think through what all problems you're gonna encounter with one set position that you're gonna take, set stance that you're gonna take. Yeah, I don't think he thought through this properly very much. But in any case, I think we have had a good stream. Madan, thanks. I think what I'm going to try and do is give a little bit lesser time to people like Wakas. I think we've had too many times that he has come and he's just hijacked our streams, because We want kind of cordial conversations where you have to allow your interlocutors to speak, and we try to do that. But the problem with Waqas is that, and I'm sorry to say this, I shouldn't say it probably, that he keeps jumping from one argument to the other, and that's why I had to intervene too many times, basically, to just stop him from jumping onto to any other argument, because he just didn't want to finish the first argument. In any case, it was lovely talking to all of you. Thanks, Mahadan, and thank you everybody for listening.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye.
Bye bye. See you next time in the next stream. Bye bye.